Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. We are on ESPN2 today, Tony. Are you ready to give ESPN one effort?
I'm Tony Kornheiser. Yeah. It's too soon to tell, really. Too soon. I don't know.
Yeah, well, too soon. You got about 30 seconds to get with it. You got seconds, not minutes, not hours.
Okay, then I'm unlikely to do it. I mean, to be fair, I'm unlikely to do it.
Got to get Steve
Welcome
Kerr.
to PTI, boys and girls.
Steve Kerr to pep you up.
In today's episode, the U.S. women's gymnastics team gets the spotlight. Caleb Williams finds out whether he will play Thursday night. And the White Sox lose their 15th straight. But we begin today with a trade deadline in baseball. A few big names have moved. The biggest one was Jorge Soler, going from the Giants back to the Braves. Lane Thomas will be an everyday player in Cleveland, having been traded there last night from Washington, much to my chagrin. Wilbon, lots of deals out there. Which deal most intrigues you so far?
Well, Tony, I keep up with Jorge Soler. I just do. He's a former member of the Cubs and wears that championship ring from 2016. And he's been moved around. He's also a World Series MVP with somebody else, another World Series, the Atlanta Braves. So I like to keep up with Soler, who can hit it 500 feet. That's just a personal thing, and he can still help them. Atlanta's had so many losses, into injury. But Tanner Scott, Tony, going from the Marlins, the closer, to San Diego, to the Padres, this seems to be a big deal. I mean, his ERA is, tiny. It was like 1.11 or something close to that. And so if you're the Padres and you've taken down the Dodgers recently in the playoffs, you believe either you can catch them because they're only 6.5 back, or you can get into a confrontation with them or anybody else in the West. But you are squarely and always looking at the Dodgers. If you're the Padres and that potent lineup they got when the Dodgers get everybody back, plus the acquisitions they've made, I think that's the big deal. I think Tanner Scott being in that Padres bullpen, which is already a team strength, and now if you make them in these stupid bullpen days we get, you give them the kind of versatility they have from already something that's a strength, that could be a big deal.
You mentioned the Dodgers. The Dodgers have not done a lot. They don't have to, because you're right. All they have to do is get their injured players back, and then they're a very, very good team. I think in the National League, the Dodgers, the Braves, and the Phillies are decisively better than everybody else. And I'll go to the Braves for a second. I think the Braves did really well. And, Mike, I find myself saying that recently every year at this time, because I think that their GM, Alex Anthopoulos, and I hope I pronounced his name correctly, is ahead of most of these other people. Getting Soler back, he needs a bat. Albies is out. Acuna is out.
Yes.
Right? So Soler did not flourish with the Giants. He did not. But maybe the change of scenery revives him. I think Cleveland gets a steal in Lane Thomas because I follow Lane Thomas from the Nats. I thought he was the best player on the team. He's an everyday player with a good bat and a good arm, and all they gave up were two minor league infielders and a 19-year-old pitcher who strikes out a lot of people but also walks a lot of people. At the top of the rung, a lot of those teams did something. Philadelphia got a closer. They need bullpen help. The Orioles got two starting pitchers. One of them, Zach Eflin, won last night, okay? So that's a good move by them. I think Jazz Chisholm Jr. going to the Yankees is a good move by them. And Seattle added a pitcher today, and they had added a Rosarena, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and Justin Turner. Those guys were in World Series. So I think a lot of stuff goes on.
Okay. The contenders have been active, Tony. The Orioles, I thought, wanted. I'm sure there's a Detroit starter they'd like to have had, and as of this moment haven't gotten. And they needed, this seems like they needed somebody in that rotation who could really, not an ace, but an ace -1. And they didn't seem to get that. So we got, it could be pretty interesting going down this stretch. As of this taping, let's move from the sublime to the awful. The forlorn Chicago White Sox had not traded their all-star lefty Garrett Crochet, but not because they were opposed to doing so. Crochet reportedly made it clear that he would not pitch in the postseason for any new team unless they rewarded him with a contract extension. White Sox GM Chris Getz said he was taken aback by the whole thing. Tony, you think Crochet is playing this the right way?
So when I first heard this, I thought, well, he must confuse himself with an NBA player or an NFL player because those guys don't go anywhere unless you do exactly what they want. They tell you where they want to play. They tell you where they want to play. They tell you play. They tell you when they want to play, and they tell you for how much money they're going to play. And this doesn't usually happen in baseball. But what essentially Crochet is doing is holding himself up for ransom. He is saying, if you want me in October, you have to pay me in July. And the mitigating factor here, Mike, is he had Tommy John surgery a couple of years ago. This isn't load management. This may be very prudent. Mike, he pitched 12 innings last year, that's all in relief. The year before, he pitched no innings. He's got, I think it's 114 innings already this year.
114 innings this year, yeah.
He's got a 3.23 ERA for a terrible team. He's got 160 strikeouts in those 114 innings. And so, you know, I mean, part of me thinks, okay, don't give yourself up. Don't risk your career so the Chicago White Sox can get prospects.
Yeah, but Tony, the alternative could be staying with the Chicago White Sox. Don't risk your career for them. If you spend the rest of the summer pitching for the White Sox, that's exactly what you're doing. You're risking your career for them. When you could be showcased elsewhere, and maybe, you know, he and his agent haven't gotten wind of the proper deal or a deal that would land him with one of those teams, say, that we just mentioned. I mean, maybe Crochet can help a contender. And even if that extension is not automatically put in front of him, he gets to showcase himself and his Tommy John repaired arm. He gets to showcase that for a team in October. So I think there's risk either way. And look, I followed this a little bit. Again, it's the White Sox. It's not the Cubs, but I still follow the team that played minute steps from where I grew up as a kid. And Getz seemed to be reasonable. He said, I understand not wanting an extension and wanting to be elsewhere, but there's a way to do this, and this wasn't it. So it's not full-out acrimony, Tony, but it's strange. It's a weird dance between
There's a cautionary tale here, Mike.
Reluctant partners.
There's a cautionary tale. It's Matt Harvey.
What's that?
Matt Harvey was pretty much shamed in pitching
so.
in the postseason and was terrible after that, 25-48. You got to think of the rest of your career. Let's move from a losing team to a winning one. The American women's gymnastics team, led by Simone Biles, won gold this afternoon for the third time in 4 Olympics. This follows the American men winning a team bronze yesterday. That's their first medal since 2008. Wilbon, where do you want to start?
Well, Tony, I guess you have to start with Simone Biles. I mean, Simone Biles, by acclamation, it seems, is the GOAT. So you need to start with Simone Biles, particularly a comeback. And it is that from what happened in Tokyo. And it was it's amazing to watch her. When you watch her, when I watch her, it feels like I am watching the greatest person to ever do that thing. And you and I have been to Olympics. We've seen in person great Olympic gymnasts. We've watched a lot of them in person for 40 years, but Biles is at the top of the list. And I understand that the men hadn't won since 2008. I really don't want to hear the commentary that says they were in some great drought. Don't tell a Cub fan about a drought of 16 years. I mean, get a grip. Everything has to be overstated. I'm glad the men won. I just sort of identify with their personalities and the excitement they had. I like the men's team just as much as the women's team, and I think there's more pressure on the women's team and Biles. So it's pretty cool going both ways, Tony, but you start to me with the GOAT, with Simone Biles.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice that the men have won. They were unexpected to win. The women are expected to win. They are the powerhouse in gymnastics, and I do believe you do start with Simone Biles because it is a redemption story after what happened to her the last time. She could not complete the exercises, and she decided to rededicate herself to this and come back again. So this is a great triumph for her. Mike, I think she's probably the most famous Olympic athlete, and you know what I mean by Olympic athlete. It eliminates basketball and tennis and golf. Most famous Olympic athlete in the world, certainly in America, either her or Katie Ledecky. But I think more people watch women's gymnastics than watch swimming. I will just say this, and I have to be honest. I watched this today. I don't really understand what I'm watching. For me, it's like diving. I don't know what's good and what's not good. If you don't fall down, I think you're great. And personally, I couldn't even get up on the balance beam. I could not. I could not stand on the balance beam. I could not get on those,
we couldn't.
that floor, that exercise where you go from bar to bar. So God bless them all. Let's take a break.
Uneven bars.
Coming up, your Bears
Uneven
decide
bars.
the uneven bars. I don't want to be on any of them. The Bears decide whether Caleb Williams will play in Thursday night's Hall of Fame game.
And did Coco Gauff have reason to be upset with a call that went against her today at the Olympics? Yeah, Tony, I mean, when you're watching Simone Biles, it looks different. I hear what you're saying, but I can't, look, you know my problem with figure skating and gymnastics is the judging. And the commentary is so wonky, I don't know what I'm seeing, and I've been watching it for 40
Power.
Time to get it on with Lexicon. What's first, please?
The Bears are blank to sit Caleb Williams in Thursday's Hall of Fame game.
My word is overprotective, Mike, and I think you and I are probably going to disagree with this. I think Caleb Williams needs to get some actual reps against another team, not practice reps against his own team, game reps against another team. You can't protect him forever. This is football. It's not badminton. I'm not saying you play him the whole game. I'm saying you start him and you play him a couple of series. This is a guy who was the overall #1 pick. The Bears liked him so much they traded away Justin Fields, and they made a commitment to Caleb Williams that feels like it's a commitment for a decade or so. So I would say to take the bubble wrap off, put him out there. I don't think anybody is going to try to hurt him. He wants to play. He specifically said he wants to play in Canton, Ohio. Maybe thinks someday he'll be inducted there. But I would play him.
All right, first of all, let's go back and provide some context. The Bears aren't just sitting Caleb Williams. They're sitting the starters. The starters aren't playing. So if you're not going to put the starters out there, you're not going to put Caleb Williams out there with the junior varsity, because then he could get killed and you wouldn't have him for 10 years. You wouldn't even have him for 10 minutes. You'd have him for about 4 snaps, maybe like Aaron Rodgers last year, and that would be dumb. So the Bears are wise to do this. I'm going to tell you why. Because this is a story that's playing out 600 miles from you. This plays in my head all night. I'm so excited about the Bears, I can't even sleep, and that's why this is wise. Because we're all out of control. All of Bear Nation is more excited about this season than any season since the Super Bowl run-up in 1985 when they made a video before they even won. It needs to be tamped down. I'm not saying that Ryan Poles, the GM, and his coaching staff is doing it for that reason. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying it's wise to do it. It's out of control. It helps no one. It doesn't help Caleb Williams, and he's not going to be out there without the starters. And they have 3 more games to do what you're suggesting. The Bears play a 4th Hall of Fame game, preseason game, because they're a Hall of Fame entrant of the 2. The other teams just play 3. The Bears will play 3 more exhibition games, as you like to call them. He'll be out there.
That's what they are. That's what they are. And the coaches shouldn't sit all the starters. Makes no sense to me. What's next?
Coco Gauff had a blank complaint in today's loss at the Olympics.
My word is unacknowledged. I understand that she heard a referee say out and on that particular shot, and she did not fully complete the shot. And I understand that the chair umpire said it wasn't out, it was in, and she lost the point and she lost that particular game. Before I get to her reaction, I will say this. You have to play out every point. You can't wait for the officials to bail you out. In all sports, you have to play out the point. She then fell apart. She literally started crying. She said at one point, this always happens to me at the French Open. She had led the first set, Mike, 4-1 and lost that set. This reminded me of what happened in Wimbledon when she fell apart and she looked to the coaching box and she wanted her coaches to help. I just think you have to play through these things. I do.
Playing through them, Tony, you have to do it, but it's legit. Her complaint is legit. You heard the call. It's not like she stopped playing before because she judged the ball to be out. The ball was called out. You can hear it plain as day. So it's a legit complaint that she has. And when you do this, the chair umpire, you know this, we've covered a million years of tennis, you and me. you have the discretion, the latitude, the power, if you're the chair ump, to say play the point over. That's easily done. The chair umpire knows the damn call was made, so get that right. You don't need to go to Cyclops or any other, video assistance. You don't need that. It's plain as day. Get it right. They didn't do that. And, there's a bigger issue here. And Coco Gauff, when she talks about what's happened to her and Serena Williams in Paris, she's talking about, yes, we heard French Open. She's talking about at Roland Garros. If you're following what's going on in Europe with race and sport in Europe, much of it is soccer related. So much of it, there's a controversy every day. But it doesn't mean it doesn't touch other sports, and it's probably worth examining further. But in the context of what happened today, her complaint's legit. There's no doubt about that.
That's the final word. Let's take one last break. Still to come, would the Jets be smart to sit Aaron Rodgers for the entire preseason? Really?
Listen to that. They're not just going for the Hall of Fame game. They're going for the whole bundle. More issues with swimming in the Seine. I think you and I should go to Paris, jump in the Seine, and show people who's tough. Come on.
No, I'm not jumping in the Seine. It has E. coli.
Come on.
Then it'll have F. coli and G. coli. No, H. coli. No, I'm not jumping in the Seine. Put this thing in a lake in France. Put it in a... Happy time, people. Happy 47th birthday, Misty May Trainer. In honor of the Olympics, we celebrate May Trainer's birthday. The first few days of the Paris Olympics have featured beach volleyball. The court is in the literal shadow of the Eiffel Tower. May Trainer and her partner, Kerry Walsh Jennings, won 3 straight gold medals in beach volleyball, winning 21 consecutive matches and dropping only 1 set total in Athens in 2004, Beijing in 2008, and London in 2012. They popularized beach volleyball probably more than anyone else in the United States. It was always a big deal in California. Wilt Chamberlain played it, but the rest of us didn't know anything about it.
Tony, I was at a lot of those events in Athens and London. And in Athens 2004, it was the venue to be at. It was the biggest party in Greece, and it just had a vibe, and they were the stars of it, and they really are foundationally important to the success of that sport. So cheers to both of them, and happy birthday.
Dropped 1 set over 3 Olympics? That's all? Happy anniversary, Willie McCovey. This is posthumous, but on this day 65 years ago, the future first ballot Hall of Fame first baseman went 4 for 4 in his major league debut with the San Francisco Giants. McCovey was Rookie of the Year that season and MVP 10 seasons later. McCovey ended up with 521 home runs and 1,555 RBI in his 22-year career. Now, nobody ever said McCovey was as good as Willie Mays, because he wasn't. But San Francisco fans had a special bond with McCovey because he started his career there, and Mays came with the Giants from New York, and that's a subtle difference. It's McCovey cold, not Mays cold. Of course, McCovey was a lefty and would have hit his home runs into it.
How great was it if you were a kid growing up in San Francisco and you got to go to Candlestick and watch Mays and McCovey? Seriously, how great is that?
Yeah.
And the coolest thing was when they played against Koufax and Drysdale. How about that? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, the only problem with going to Candlestick is that the wind blew in, and and nothing ever went out. I mean, it was not the best
would
part
have
in the
had
world.
850 home runs. He would have.
Happy trails to yet another day of swimming in the Seine. Olympic officials postponed the start of the men's triathlon until Wednesday, after a 3rd straight day when E. coli levels in the river were too high. Officials say they are confident the men and women's triathlons can be staged on Wednesday, despite rain expected tonight. If the water quality still doesn't measure up, they will run the races on Friday with the option of dropping the swimming leg entirely and running the event as a duathlon. You can't stand for that, Wilbon. You can't.
No, Tony, I agree with you. Rivers in big cities are to be walked alongside. You can look at them, smile at them, you can eat you know, at a nice cafe on the bank of the river. You're not supposed to swim in them dopes.
No.
Whoever planned this is just a dope.
There's no lake in France. Stop it. You can't have a duathlon.
Please.
One omission. Garrett Cole was scratched from his start tonight with, quote, general body fatigue. That's not good. Let's go to the big finish if we could.
Let's do it.
Japan pushed France to overtime in men's basketball today. You got to be surprised by that.
Yes. And Rui Hachimura was ejected in the fourth. He wasn't even on the court. I mean, France is supposed to win that game by a bigger, safer, more comfy margin than that. The U.S. women's rugby sevens team won bronze on a walk-off try. I don't know what that means, but are you impressed?
Well, I don't know what a try is, though I always tell the kids, try your best. Canada has appealed the penalty against its women's soccer team to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. You think they'll win?
Appeal on Tuesday, verdict Wednesday? I have no idea. Jets coach Robert Saleh says Aaron Rodgers is unlikely to play in the preseason. That's a lot of bubble wrap. Is that smart?
So much drama with Aaron Rodgers every single day. Look, he's 40 years old. He doesn't need the preseason. He's not Caleb Williams. Last one, Giannis's Greek team fell to Spain. Your thoughts?
You know, Greece is in 0-2 and in danger of being eliminated before the knockout. But to Spain is a much better team than Greece. Not a surprise.
We're out of time. Try and do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knucklehead. You can get the podcast on the app or Apple Podcasts. I got to run. I got to go watch some synchronized diving. Let me go.
Duathlon. Who trains for a duathlon? Who's a duathlete? Stop it. Put it in a...